Welcome to Wednesday Inspirational Book Lounge. I'm Anna Murby, your host. This season, we're reading Mephibosheth, A Twisted Life of Unexpected Grace and Mercy, the true story of a medically fragile child whose life became a living testimony of God's grace. This book invites us into a story of deep love and brokenness, revealing how God's mercy often shines brightest in the most fragile lives. Enjoy the episode.
Mephibosheth, A Twisted Life of Unexpected Grace and Mercy, by Chaplain Aaron. Read by Hubert Carl. Chapter 11. Death Comes Too Soon, and Not One of Them is Forgotten Before God. Luke 12:6b. A Variety of Ailments. What a beautiful morning that every day turns into a joyful carnival of laughter. Each child in the house has a flavor of personality and a sound all their own. In fact, anyone visiting on any given morning would get the sense that this house was full of vibrant life and happiness. That is because it is the nature of children early in the morning. These children are no exception. With their gurgles instead of giggles, and their rooting back and forth instead of running, you can see their individuality shining through. It's time to get some of them ready for a school program or a doctor's appointment. One boy is a fussy eater and has to be slowly fed each spoonful with the same finicky style that any child had. Is he going through a phase? Who knows? It's just his personality. We may need to give him an NG tube of protein formula just to make sure he gets an adequate amount of daily nutrition. Another boy is having trouble breathing because of his allergies in the springtime pollen. This is Sacramento. There are 4 different allergy seasons. Clogged up sinuses are one of the added sounds that come along with the cacophony of health delights. Along with cleaning eyes and ears and noses, there comes the daily checking and writing down of notes for everything in process. Sometimes it's a rash. Sometimes it's a reaction. But this morning routine, cleaning noses and writing it down. The concept of writing down everything is so important that from the first day it becomes second nature. This communication is not just for personal reminders or for the yearbook. This is for accountability and health progress. When a child goes to school, the first thing the teacher's assistant will pick up is a communication notebook sent by the parents. This instructs the teacher of any kind of unusual thing that may have occurred in the evening or weekend prior. The teacher will, in turn, write their notes to assure the parents that the information was read and addressed. If there's good news, a great change or a step of progress, it is wonderful to look back and see the day of progress. These notebooks are designed to encourage and inspire communication, though the accountability aspect is just as vital. Medication is one of those notes that automatically gets written at the top of every page, set back and forth between parents and teachers. This includes doctors and pharmacists as well. If a child goes to the doctor's office, the physician will look at this book to see the child's routine and what type of formula have been provided. Sometimes a formula will have a problem moving through the GI tract. In other words, it makes the child constipated. Different forms of allergy medications, discussions of laxatives, and neurological medications, along with their side effects, are recorded in these books. You can understand that after a year of caring for a beautiful life, there is a small stack of 8.5 by 11 college-ruled notebooks that have been meticulously filled out by everyone in the child's life. Small, family, and careful. This household of children is no stranger to the process of close personal care for each individual they have nurtured. From a young girl born only at 1 pound to another who has extreme sleep apnea, and even our Mephibosheth, who has a large tumor at the top of his head. Each child was cared for with the most extreme nurturing and care. This was not done just by Paul and Dale themselves, but by a group of doctors, nurses, practitioners, nursing assistants, and even in-home supportive service workers, IHSS. Everyone did their part. At home, the eyes of each helper or medical visitor into the house, which functioned like a miniature hospital, were the first medical team to assist in the imperative task of every minute. Diapers don't change themselves, you know. Whether it was part of the schedule or 5 minutes off, the conscience of each person who helped made a big difference. Early infancy children are normally observed all day long. When there is a fuss, a mother will wake and take care of her infant about every other hour during the first couple of months. In strategic nursing care of this kind, it is standard to plan for checking on the child every couple of hours, even in the middle of the night. One girl had chronic sleep apnea, so a monitor was the second-hand helper used to track her heartbeat and breathing. If a child had been breathing normally, then a checkup in the middle of the night would be the same as with a normal child in any other family. It's an odd routine to sleep a little and then arbitrarily get up to check the children, but this was their lifestyle of love. It was very common to come in at 6 o'clock in the morning and see that Dale had already set up several times during the night, completing many tasks between 3 and 5 a.m. The wheelchairs were ready, the backpacks were stuffed, the notes were read and checked off, and return notes were filled out. Sometimes medications were meted out for each child's dosage for the day. If any of the children had a bad reaction, a flu, or a fever, she would be the first to know and would already have a plan in action. Chrissa Jean was a delightful little girl Paul and Dale had adopted. Her warm, big moon eyes matched her dark curly hair. She was an unfortunate case of breech birth that left the infant without oxygen for a little too long. The result was a body that did not function completely and a mind that had been deprived of the necessary breath of life. This adorable young lady was a joy to see each and every morning. She was less than a year old when she came into the care of the family. Every day it was a delight to see the smiling set of slightly twisted teeth looking in your direction, or any direction. Just like an infant with eyes open for the first time, Carissa acted as if the world was a new place each morning. In her little world, this 1-year-old always looked out with curious wonder. Each person who cared for this sweet soul would be taken in by the same question. I wonder what she's thinking now. Does she understand that I see her every day? I know her name. I wonder if she's used to mine yet. Carissa, can you say Mom? Mama? Third watch of the night. Mephibosheth, Carissa, and our lovely cast of toddlers would finally be getting ready for another beautiful day of adventures. In the evening, they would return for the close of the day out of the big world. Their notebooks would detail their extravagant travels on the transit bus, their curious reactions in the classroom, and even a couple of notes from visiting doctors. It was now the end of the day and time to settle in for a good night's rest. Each one of these blessed gifts from the Lord was bathed, changed, and ready for their crib. They were tucked in on the sides and patted on their toes. A quiet song from the book Lullabies could be sweetly heard in the room. This set the tone as each face turned to yawns and slowly drifted off. It was a good day. I love you, and I can't wait to see you in the morning. Paul! Paul! Dale was calling as loud as she could. Paul, get in here! He arrived in an instant. Dale was hovering over one of the cribs with the lights on, wearing a look that could only be described as concerned and terrified at the same time. It was Carissa. She was not breathing. They immediately started the CPR routine they were so well trained to perform. They knew it so well they didn't have to think of the pattern. They just began. Breathe, compressions, breathe, compressions. Carissa, wake up. Come on, sweetheart, wake up. 911 was called. They continued at the precise pace they had been taught, as if their own lives depended on it. Minutes sped by, and then came a knock at the door. The paramedics had arrived. They came in and checked for a heartbeat that was no longer there. They looked at the fingers and the lips for the telltale blueness expected at such a time. This did not deter Paul or Dale from trying to give the breath of life to their daughter. Perhaps she might come back this time. Perhaps this round of compressions would bring her back to life. The paramedics were courteous. They continued CPR as they carried the tiny 18-month-old down the hallway. The other children were stirring at the sound of people in the house at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was way too early for them to be up. Hopefully, they would go back to sleep. Paul offered to go with the paramedics, taking his own car to the hospital. This visit was to receive the anticipated information, the final answer from the on-staff doctor. "I'm sorry, sir, your daughter didn't make it. Is there someone you would like to talk to for counseling at this time?" That is the standard question a gracious hospital asks at the time like this. The next thing they do is assign a social worker to confirm that all was well and inquire about what led up to the child's passing. Everyone understands the need to ensure the truth in this situation, but it never feels right. Walking through the uncertain. When Paul came home about an hour later, Dale was at the kitchen table sorting through papers. She hadn't yet let her emotions get the best of her, but now, with her loving support by her side, she was ready to express her feelings. She cried both for the loss of their precious 18-month-old and for the uncertainty of how life works. She explained to her husband that she had checked Carissa, but a couple of hours later the child wasn't breathing. What could she have done differently in those midnight hours? Could she have been there a half hour earlier? Could she have done something different that day before? She read over the notebooks, the conversations she had written down, to see if there was something she had missed. She wasn't concerned with anyone else's opinion. She was looking for answers as to why these things happen. "How do we go from here?" she asked her gentle counterpart. These understandings of the unknown often led to self-doubt. It is a natural course of emotions at a time like this, especially when you have done everything you thought was right, only to have your child pass away unexpectedly seconds later. They were used to caring for the results of other people's mistakes or violent actions, but Paul and Dale were not used to this happening to them. In truth, whoever gets used to a child not waking up? No one ever does. They spoke with their pastor, who was always glad to listen, offer an encouraging word, and pray with anyone who called. Paul and Dale had a chance to look at everything that had happened the day before and that night. Truly, there was no comfort in the death of a child, but the fact that Carissa's body simply stopped breathing was slightly consoling, if not comforting. Now their thoughts turned inward. How would they deal with the next child? How would they deal with tonight or tomorrow night? Did they need to change their 2-hour routine? Their pastor remained a source of support, checking in several times over the next week to see if they needed anything. Social services was not there for condolences. They were there to ensure everything had been done properly and that the children were being cared for professionally. They inspected the book to see if everything was correctly recorded. They checked the medication list and their proper dosage. They had a responsibility, and they fulfilled it. It never feels like a friendly visit. It often feels uncomfortable and out of place. This is a part of life that is both needed and imperfect, a necessary degree of accountability. The day waned, its painful experience taking its toll on everyone. Burial arrangements became part of the day's tasks, along with a regular schedule of taking care of the other children. This day was tainted by the morning's tragedy, yet they found the resolve to continue. Paul and Dale gladly committed their daily blessings and daily griefs to the almighty care of God. Their resilience shone like a campfire, inviting the curious who looked upon the couple with amazement. You could not help but see that life's up and downs did not change them. Rather, it established them even more firmly within the community of those who care for the disabled. Paul remained ready to help both at home and with the deaf community. Dale smiled with strength, her face shining at each doctor's appointment. The days continued, and so did the care for the precious lives entrusted to their hearts and arms.
Thank you for joining us today. Make sure to come back next week for another installment of Mephibosheth, A Twisted Life of Unexpected Grace and Mercy.